We'll call a regular meeting in the New Ulm City Council for Tuesday, September 17th, 2019 at 4:30 p.m. to order. First item on the agenda is your consent agenda items. What's your wishes?
I'll offer a motion to approve those.
Second.
We have a motion and a second to approve the consent agenda items. Any discussion on any? Seeing none? All in favor say aye.
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 Opposed, no? Motion carries. Item number 2, a public hearing. Public hearing on the assessments of the 2005 special assessments on 3 parcels within the Lakeside Village addition. Steve?
Thank you, Mr. President. The City Council has scheduled a public hearing on the reassessment of special assessments from a 2005 construction project in the Lakeside Village addition. Several of these parcels went to tax forfeiture, and we've been doing about 2 or 3 of these every year for the last few years. So it's necessary to hold a public hearing to reassess the balance of these assessments. I have not received any written comments with regard to these.
Thank you. This is a public hearing. Anybody like to be heard on it? Nobody? Seeing none, entertain a motion, close public hearing.
I'll offer a motion to close the public hearing, offer the resolution, waive the reading, and adopt the final assessment rolls for the 2005 reassessment of 3 listed parcels within Lakeside Village addition payable over a 10-year period, along with a 5.5 simple interest charge on the unpaid balance.
Second.
We have a motion and a second to offer the resolution, waive the hearing, close public hearing. Any more discussion? Seeing none, Finance Director, please call the roll.
Counselor Mack?
Yes.
Counselor Schultz?
Yes.
Counselor Christian?
Yes.
President Schmitz?
Yes, motion carries. Item number 3, rezoning and comprehensive plan amendment petition from Arlen and Susan Body. Dave?
Dave Schnobert, Community Development Director. This particular item was originally scheduled to be considered at the City Council September 3rd meeting, but was at the request of the petitioner continued to today's meeting. There's actually 2 separate requests that are being made by the petitioners. One is to rezone a single lot from I-2 General Industrial District to R3, which is a multifamily residence district. And the second request is to amend the city's comprehensive plan to designate the property from industry to high-density residential. The property is legally described as Lot 14 of Block 48 South, and the street address of the property is 1703 South Minnesota Street. The Planning Commission considered this particular matter at their August 29th meeting and recommended denial of both requests on a 5-to-1 vote. The purpose of the petitioner's request is that they would like to rezone one lot, which would allow them to construct a single-family dwelling on the property. They indicated that it would allow them to to watch over their properties which adjoin this particular parcel. Should note that in the R3 zoning district, we do allow single-family dwellings to be constructed. We have a pyramid form of zoning in our residential district. So in the R3 zone, anything that's permitted in the R2 and the R1 zone is also allowed. Now, I'd just like to give a brief history of the property from a zoning standpoint. In a document dated from September of 1963, the subject property was zoned commercial. In a zoning document dated October 1st, 1968, the property at that time was zoned I-1. And then in 1975, the property was rezoned to I-2. And that was part of a much larger rezoning that took place in that part of the community. Should note that when the petitioners purchased the property was zoned I-2. When the city council makes decision on many of your land use items, you use criteria to do that. And the planning commission uses those criteria in making a recommendation to you, and you use those same criteria in making your decision. Now, when it comes to things like conditional use permits or interim use permits, we get guidance or authorization actually from state statute to take action on those items. Generally, they provide some direction, but the council has a certain amount of authority in coming up with specifics as to reasons to approve those requests. When it comes to variances, state statute's very specific. This is what you consider in making these decisions, and it applies statewide. When it comes to rezonings, in this particular case, we use court decisions that have been made. And what the courts have determined is that in evaluating a rezoning request, there are two considerations that would apply. One is whether the proposed rezoning corrects an error in the original text or map. And the second is whether the proposed rezoning addresses needs arising from a changing condition, trend, or fact affecting the subject property and the surrounding area. So one of those two conditions needs to be present in order to approve the rezoning. In this particular case, there was no error made in the original zoning text or map, since it's been that way since 1968. So therefore, the finding that needs to be made is that there's a changing condition, trend, or fact. And it's the responsibility of the applicant to provide that information. Now, staff could not find any evidence of that type of situation, that there was a change in condition, trend, or fact. So in making its decision, the Planning Commission noted that there was no evidence of such change. In making that decision, we utilized memorandums from City Attorney Hippert, as well as a memorandum from former City Attorney Hugh Nierengarten on this subject. In addition, the proposed R3 zoning would adjoin properties that are zoned I2 on two sides and B2 on a third side. There is R3 zoning on one side of the property, but it was felt that those three other zoning classifications would not be compatible with a residential use. The R2 zoning district allows all of our permitted industrial uses in that zoning district. So if we allow an industrial use, it would be permitted at that location. The rezoning would not be compatible with the comprehensive plan. The rezoning would be a form of spot zoning since it's only one lot. Zoning districts are best separated by streets and by alleys or by railroad rights-of-way, not by lot lines. And finally, approval would set a precedent that, at least in staff's opinion, would make it difficult to manage land use in the city. When it comes to the comprehensive plan, reasons for recommending denial were as follows: that the request does not address the interests and needs of the entire city, that the request does not address a changed condition since the last time the comprehensive plan map or text was amended, that the subject property would not be suitable for development in general conformance with most of the adjacent land uses and the surrounding development pattern, that there are municipal utilities, though, to serve the subject property, that the request does not demonstrate a public benefit and does not embrace the public health, safety, and welfare of the city. The benefit in this case is private. Another reason being that the current comprehensive boundaries follow city streets and clearly define the industry area. And then also finally that this is an extremely small parcel of property. That would conclude the Planning Commission's reasoning for this decision.
Thank you, Dave. Anybody have anything?
I do have one question for the city attorney before my voice goes dead. I mean, I've studied these documents, familiar with our zoning and the comp plan. If a city council would actually vote to approve that, we're actually voting to challenge the Supreme Court decision?
I don't know that you're challenging it. I would think if, based upon the information that is on the record before you, I would have a hard time defending this decision as being consistent with the requirements of the law. Hugh Nierengarten's memorandum to the council is almost exactly 32 years old. I researched the Supreme Court cases that he referred to. All of them are still valid law in Minnesota. None of that has changed. So the criteria are the same. And I think there's just not a showing that's been made that there's been a significant change in the character of the neighborhood. And in fact, it hasn't even been alleged in the application. The request is basically, as I read it in the application, to build a residence so that the owners can monitor their storage units. That's not a change in the character of the neighborhood. In addition, I believe this might have been mentioned, but valid consideration for the Planning Commission and this council is everyone likes to see new construction. They like to see the tax base added to. A new home is an asset. But that is not a legal reason to be changing the zoning. It absolutely is not. So I'm hard put to see how this situation would comply with the applicable state law.
Thank you.
I'm gonna just state from being serving on the Planning Commission, we discussed this issue, and like at first when I met with Arlen and Sue on the, it'd be great to put it on the tax roll, but the way our current zoning is stated for the I-2, and we just want to put a single residence, I'm gonna have to motion to deny at this point in time. But I would like staff to probably consider, because I don't really see that area for the future being a major industrial park from 17th South to 19th South. But I would like maybe staff to consider, maybe we can look at ways for rezoning that property and maybe, coming up with some sort of solution or work with the committee for future needs. Otherwise, we're, like staff had said, we're spot zoning it just for a single family home. That's my piece on it.
Thank you.
I'm going to agree with Councilor Mack on that, coming back to us with a few of those options. I remember when I sat on the zoning board and the Planning Commission, one of my ideas was always something unique or whatnot, some kind of division where commercial property or industrial. They did it years back in New Ulm. We changed the tradition where a businessman could actually live on the upper part of his business being on the lower level. I mean, I would just like to have it looked into. How are the communities doing it? Is it a good idea, bad idea, and see where that goes.
And I guess just for an example, is some cities have these garage condominiums where they've got a big garage and a little residence within their garage, and I think people's needs have changed, and a lot of people have a lot of toys nowadays, and so If we're not looking at it, we're not moving forward.
Yeah, unfortunately, because of the rules, it looks like we have to deny this. However, it's frustrating because, as what you folks have already mentioned, and as a property owner, I'd be like, it makes sense. I want to live next to the property I own, and they want to live right there, and it just makes sense. But until we change the zoning regulations, and I know we have tons of examples in our packet here of other places that are built right next to homes all over town.
I'd like to maybe add, Les, that a lot of them, and staff went back and reported that a lot of them were done on our permitted use. Am I correct, Dave, by stating that?
Well, a lot of those uses, almost all of them predate the enactment of the ordinance in 1968. I
And the
mean,
city
you
was
can
small
find
then.
situations all over town, you know, like that.
And, you know, and our zoning is 50 years old.
Right.
So, and people's needs and wants have changed, and if we, you know, direct staff to look at some options and work with Mr. Body, and there's a property owner, Mrs. Lundberg, would like to see her property developed, you know, further on down the street on German Street and
Right.
things of that nature, and try to include them and see if we can come up with a solution that might work within our community.
Support all of us, yeah, I agree.
I guess I agree too, Larry, so.
So with that being said, I'm gonna offer a motion to deny we got a speaker yet.
Go ahead.
A couple minutes to speak. I'd like to tell you that, first of all, I don't understand exactly where, you know, they're saying there's no drastic change in the climate of the neighborhood. They want to go back to a law that was made in 1968. Well, the majority of these properties down there had an industrial manufacturing brick and tile yard on there. That does no longer exist. Now there's just private use storage buildings. To me, that's a huge drastic difference in the usage of the land. There's no way you're going to get an industrial business to come in here and come anywhere as close to the lot that I'm proposing to build on. First of all, the whole half lot that this sits on, I own 5 of those lots, and my dad owns the other 2. I also have closed on the lot that's right across the alley. So there is no property adjoining it that anybody else could even build on, first of all. And there's residential directly across the street. I understand that they want the street as a buffer zone, but I mean, there's areas in town here, even though they say all the changes were done after 68, there's one definite one down on the south side of town, on the 1600 block. I have a map from the city that shows that it was all R1. And somewhere from 2008 on that map till now, 2 of the lots on that block have been changed to I1. And 2 large buildings have been placed on there right directly next to a residence. So if you're looking for a precedent, I think it's been set already. If that was allowed, I don't know if you have that in your packet or what you have, it'd be page 38 on the packet. I'm not sure if you have that.
Yeah, I think
Okay.
I saw that one.
But anyways, I mean, if I have a map here that shows 2008 that they were R1, or, you know, resident 1, and now they're I1, obviously, whatever type of spot zoning you're afraid of, or whatever mixing of the different zoning, it's already been done very recently. And, you know, as for, like I said, you know, everybody says it's industrial, it's manufacturing down in an area, but there is no manufacturing, there is no industry. And that's not the direction that whole area is going. It's going into private buildings. I mean, I guess, you know, to prove that one side of the law, I guess I don't know your exact criteria, but to me, looking at it, I think it's a huge difference in what it was from year 68 that they talk about till now. And frankly, you know, you look at it, these lots, most of them have been sitting empty for well over 30 years. And I can't believe that there can't be something done to start developing them.
That one he's talking about is on page 10. Took me a
That
while.
one's on North Minnesota Street. Right?
On
That
which
shed.
one?
The
It's
one
on
you-
page 10 of our document. I'll just
Oh.
let them know so they can pull it up.
Yeah, it's on, yeah, North Minnesota.
Yeah, North Minnesota Street.
yeah.
Those were former lots that were by
Yeah.
3M.
Yeah. So, I
And
mean,
there again, you're in a residential, and we put, there's several examples within the community where we've had residential and we've built storage sheds next to there, but we haven't had storage sheds where we put a residence next to there.
Just kind of the opposite.
Kind of the
but
opposite.
opposite, you end up with the same end
Same
result.
result.
Same result, but going to be consistent with our current zoning, you know, and challenging, like Roger had stated, whether, you know, court's gonna be there for spot zoning. That's why I'm leaning, you know, that we have to deny and then direct staff to look at taking our I-2 and taking a better look at that. And, you know, there's been changes, cause yeah, there's several storage sheds on German Street and they have several storage sheds and trying
So
to.
would we have spot zoned this particular project back then?
Mr. President, I think Mr. Schnobrick can explain this. The
Yeah.
same issue came up in front of the planning and zoning. And I think you need to understand the history of this one single episode.
Sure.
Yeah, those, I think we've, 3 lots perhaps are in that location, and they were rezoned for the 3M company. And back in the early 80s, and the purpose was to allow 3M to build a parking lot in that location. And they were rezoned to I-1, and then 3M decided not to proceed with that. And a storage building is a permitted use in both the I-1 and in the I-2 zoning district.
But that was still changed from R1 to that I1. No matter who it was for, whether it was for 3M or whatever, those buildings are not owned by 3M today. They're owned by personal, private people.
So I agree, it was spot change. We changed it, so.
So,
But I don't know if where we wanna go with this exactly. I agree with Larry where I think we need to look at the code and do some rezoning and stuff of the property and include more within it, but, you know, staying the way we were 50 years ago is not the thing to do. We gotta make changes in our community with our development and everything else, so I think we need to look at this seriously.
I mean, there was another area that was just changed very close to this too. The 1800 block of South Minnesota Street, right behind Heartland Tire. That whole half block was I-2, and now it's B2. That got changed too. I mean, we're looking at different zoning changes affecting the same type of properties.
And a comment I want to make, in my mind, to me, it's as simple as in our zoning ordinance, years back, Mr. Schnobick and I used to look at them, we actually had it spelled out, what could be in those certain zoning districts. That didn't work that great. You had to do a lot of comparing. In my mind, it would just be, sit down, look at our different zoning districts, what permitted uses do we want to allow in those districts? I mean, if somebody wants to build a 2,000 square foot shed in their living quarters and back, council wishes to go that way, put it in a zoning ordinance, and it's real easy. That's my thought.
Correct, and that's kind of how I'm, you know, stating that we need to update our zoning and.
And it
How
kind of
much would it take to update our zoning?
Well,
Dave?
Dave?
Well, we're actually in the process of doing it at the present time. But I'll be honest with you, I haven't seen too many I-2 types of zoning districts where we have permitted residential uses in them. So if you're aware of cities where this is taking place, if you could let me know about that, I'd be most appreciative.
Dave, Have you reached out to the League of Minnesota Cities for for a resource within communities?
Yeah,
of how they've,
Regarding this particular request, we did reach out to them and ask about it, but yeah, we can ask them again to be a little bit more specific.
and maybe for how they're handling other communities within the state and I mean,
Yeah.
how other communities are looking at, adapting to people's, storage needs and if they want.
Right. Yeah, we can make that inquiry.
Okay.
I would also note that a lot of the property in this area has been under one ownership. And if that particular individual doesn't want to develop, there's nothing that we can do about that. But the zoning is still I-2, and if they wanted to develop it for a manufacturing purpose, they could, along with a variety of other industrial uses.
I did speak with that owner that owns that majority of property, and she would like to see it developed, and she's expressed an interest in working with the bodies on coming up with a plan.
I've talked to Bev Lundenberg about it. Basically, the majority of the lots she has down there were partitioned off for sale as lots under the Harmoning First Edition. And she's been trying to sell this stuff and is sitting on it for over 10 years, and she's a very unhappy person with the amount of taxes she's paid, and is very unhappy about the fact that nothing can be changed. Nothing ever changes, no matter how much you ask. And yet it sits empty. That does not help the city of New Ulm to develop property. So I think that's something to consider.
I guess I'm back with Larry. I think we need to have staff move forward and look at other options, and if the other property owner is willing to rezone, let's get moving.
And if we're in the process of rezoning as we speak, this could all come together pretty quickly,
Right.
potentially.
This could come
Quickly
to,
as cities move, let's rephrase that.
staff could bring it to the Planning and Zoning Commission. Zoning Commission could review it, maybe have a work session with council. And after a work session with council, we could maybe hold a public hearing and invite the property owners and see, how the community feels about changes. And then we look at putting it into our zoning.
Right, I think we need to figure out a way to make this work. It's just gonna have to be a process.
Yeah, we have to take 2 steps backwards, go 1 step forward.
So we're not violating laws, we don't get sued, we just have to do it right.
Correct. Otherwise, if we do it tonight, next month we have another spot zoning issue that comes up, and then we have to say we have to be consistent.
Sounds good to me.
So we're supporting you, we just gotta figure out how to do it right. So you had a partial motion.
So I'm gonna motion to deny the petition of Arlen and Sue Body requesting the following approvals of the property located at 1703 South Minnesota Street, legally described as Lot 14, Block 48, south of Center Street. And that was for rezoning property from I-2 General Industrial to R3 Multifamily Residence District. And number 2 was amending of the comprehensive plan to designate property from I Industrial to High Density Residential.
Do you wanna, number
Deny.
3 about getting staff report back to us on this within X number of days, or?
I would direct staff to look into this and to bring it to the planning commission for future discussion.
There you go, yeah.
And then the planning
Put a
commission.
timeline on that, cause otherwise I think it pushes people to get stuff done.
Let's give them a couple months,
60 days.
60 days.
I'll second the motion.
We have a motion and a second. Any more discussion? Seeing none? All in favor, say aye.
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 Opposed, no. Motion carries. Go on to item number 4. Approve MnDOT Office of Aeronautics Grant Agreement number 1035312. Mr. Kaler.
Thank you, Mr. President. We've got a couple of engineering task orders up at the airport that the city council had previously approved, subject to some reimbursement with state and federal funds. We've got a project to deliver a pavement rehabilitation project for next summer. Those are design services. And then also we are undertaking a wildlife hazard site visit follow-up report. Those task orders totaled about $58,000 in cost. I believe the second meeting in August, you had previously approved the federal grant. That was about $31,000. These are typically funded through a combination of federal and state grants. So this is the follow-up to the state portion, and this grant is in the amount of about $18,000. So of the $58,000, the state and federal side are picking up approximately $50,000. So we would recommend approval so we can get reimbursed for this work.
I'll offer the resolution.
Second.
We have a motion and a second to offer resolution, waive reading. Any more discussion? Hearing none, Finance Director, please call the roll.
Counselor Mack,
Yes.
Counselor Schultz,
Yes.
Counselor Christian.
Yes.
President Schmitz.
Yes, motion carries. Item 5, from the B&L Bar Alley closure for Oktoberfest celebration, and that's for October 5th and 12th, 2019, from 8 a.m. to, whatever time here, I'm missing it, up to 8 a.m. on Sunday, and October 6th at 2 a.m., sorry.
So this is a
Go ahead.
request, Council President and Councilors, this is a request that comes every year, and I still recommend approving this decision, but adding one more condition that's not on the issue sheet, and that would be that the B&L has to have staff, security, volunteers, whatever you want to call them, outside the exits of the alley where the barricades are, so that alcohol doesn't travel past the point of where it should be, which is the event area.
Thank you.
Mr. President,
Yes.
and councilors, I'd previously communicated with the council and the mayor. I agree with the recommendation of the city manager on that. The proposal is that the resolution would allow the closure and the operation, extension of the premises to the alley with conditions. And one of the conditions would be to require the applicant to comply with state law and the city code by not allowing patrons to leave the licensed premises. And I would think, as noted by the city manager, that would include, whether it's volunteers, employees, whoever, that the applicant is responsible for making sure that people are keeping their drinks where they're supposed to. The other thing, frankly, would be to have some type of more secure closure. I know in the past, when this applicant has gotten permission to use the alley, they will typically, sometimes they'll just put up parking bucks, sometimes they'll put up something that's more secure. Having personally been downtown last year at Oktoberfest, there were visitors everywhere with alcohol. Now they're walking up and down Minnesota Street. That's not allowed. It's not the law.
That wasn't just coming out of the B&L, that was coming out of everywhere.
I believe a lot of it was coming out of the chamber area,
Yeah, it was.
and I don't know what other bars. I wasn't sitting there watching it.
They got
but
more restrictive on the second weekend, I think, after conversations with law enforcement.
Possibly. I'm not sure. But in any case, this is something where I think both of the applicants, and it's the next item on the agenda, but both of the applicants have to understand this. I mean, this is the area where the alcohol is allowed. And you can't just sell the beer or the drinks and then watch these people leave. It's illegal. It's the same thing as selling to minors, or selling to someone who's obviously intoxicated. It's a violation of the law. It's not that hard to control the situation. Money is being made doing it. It's a great event. But I just thinking we need to make sure something is done to comply with the law. And I'm sure that the New Ulm Police Department will be monitoring this. And if they see individuals leaving the licensed premises, the applicants are going to be held accountable.
I got a question. Okay, for the chamber, the area that we're allowing the liquor to be sold in is on Center Street, right?
Correct.
From where to where?
I'm not sure if there's a representative here, or that would be the next item on the
That-
agenda.
Okay, well, I'm
Yep.
just, I guess where I'm
But
headed.
generally, they will close off.
They fence it in.
Yeah, they usually have one of those, I think, mesh fences.
Yep.
It's fairly secure. It's not just some parking bucks. So I think it would be easy enough, sort of like what they do at Bachfest. I mean, you know, you don't leave the Shell's Brewery grounds with a beer. You drink it or you dump it out. And it's the same thing here. If someone is in their area and they're enjoying the music, if they want to leave, they can't take their beer with them. It's just the law.
Couldn't we expand the area?
What's that?
Couldn't we expand the area?
I suppose you could. It's not in the application, but,
I mean,
part of the
It
problem,
would take the problem away from
I
us.
guess part of the problem, Mr. President, is depending upon where you're going to expand it to. If you're going to expand it to an area that includes Minnesota Street, you now have people who are living in those apartments who want access. You've got people in the businesses who want access, and you've got other licensees, depending upon what part of Minnesota Street is going to be closed. The state law and our code allows this for a licensee, whether it's an existing licensee like the BNL, or if it's a special event applicant like the Chamber. But it does not allow kind of a free-for-all where you're closing the street and every bar on the street is able to use that. The state law and our code use singular. And I think one of the reasons for that is because they want to be able to determine who's responsible. If there is a problem, if you've got underage people walking around with beers, where'd they get it from? And I think you know what the answer is going to be if you got multiple people who are selling. Everyone's pointing the finger. If it's on their premises and an underage person is found there, you know who's responsible. So, I mean, this is the application that you have from this licensee. The next one is from the Chamber. And my understanding is it would apply to the area that they've got described in here.
But we are in our work session after this meeting, we're going to be talking about this very topic.
Yes, we are.
This could change things for next year, for future festivals. So, but I mean, I know we have to deal with what we got in front of us, but
Okay.
we'll see.
I guess I would like to see it, you know, be considered like our community center or like our civic center, where you're gonna have to have security. And, you know, we're extending out into the public right away, you know, then we know.
But you're
we're-
only required to have security if you have X number of people present. If I remember right when I read that statute, there's There's a number.
The code directs it when it's on city facilities, and the public right of way in the street are city facilities, just like our parks and our buildings are.
Correct.
So,
You know, so this has come before us several times. I mean, for many years, it's Bachfest, it's Oktoberfest, it's a concert, it's a golf tournament, special events of that nature, but we're going into public right away, whether it's there or we're using the chamber corner, or if it's, you know, the lamplighter wants to have something on the street, you know, within the means. It might be an inconvenience for the business that they have to hire staff, but, you know, then we have security, you know, and we have one officer
and I think
there.
these
And
two,
if we adopt it that way, I think, you know, we're setting a precedence that, you know, it's secure.
and Mr. President, councilors, depending upon the nature of the applicant, there are different rules that apply. For some of these, if it's deemed to be a community festival, there's kind of a different set of rules. There are others where it's a one-time event. There's different criteria. So for each case, it's kind of unique. But for this one, you absolutely can extend the premises to the areas requested by both of these applicants. But it's with conditions. And I'm just trying to recommend some conditions that will help the applicant to comply with the law, because otherwise we're going to have another free-for-all.
I don't have an issue with it, and one item I want to ask the city attorney, I really didn't like it when you said volunteers. I'd rather have us set it where, no, you hire security.
Yeah.
A volunteer is a volunteer, oh, I'm out of here.
You know, and I'm thinking of an example of Shell's Brewery. So they hire security.
Right.
And Shell's Road is a city road almost to the brewery. And that's on the city right of way, which they asked to close, and just to try to be future and be consistent within our community. And that's how I see it.
Any others?
We don't have a motion yet.
Not yet.
Resolution
Yes.
Resolution
I know, we don't have, nobody's made a motion yet.
or resolution?
or resolution.
A resolution, yeah. We have Mr. Cammy, is there anything he wants to say? Gotta come up to the mic or nobody can hear you.
Name and address just for the record.
Rick Com, 6 Ridgeview Drive. I do my best to keep people in the boundaries. I do stop people, keep them there, but they do wander. And how do I stop them? What do I tackle them? I mean, what guidelines do I have in security to do it? You know, if I have a security guard there, he can say, okay, pour the drink out. If the guy walks by him, where's that responsibility then? Do we tackle him? I don't know what that problem is. You know what I mean? I mean, we haven't had no issues downtown. They're organized. We do a good job of cleaning up. I think all the businesses downtown do. It ain't like the old days of Bachfest and the old days of the polka days. In the last few years, I've been in this 18 years, it's changed drastically. There is no fighting. There is no craziness like it used to be. They come here to celebrate, spend money, bring money to our town, and have a good time. And that's what, it helps all our businesses downtown, which we need to keep everybody going. And I understand there's rules and regulations and laws, but if they're not getting out of hand, and if somebody out of town just once he's across that line, I mean, and we ticket him, that's just gonna bring a bad thing to our town. I mean, I'll have 13 people working that day and staffed. I have door cutters, I have everything. But they are allowed to go out to 4 feet to go out and have a cigarette. So and I will put up fencing in the front, and I do have fencing in the back. It'll be cattle pen. I mean, we do what we have to do to keep people in our rights and keep them safe. I mean, and that's what we are. But in the old days, it used to be a lot worse, and now there is nothing. If you walk the streets in the after these things, everything's clean and everything's orderly. You don't even know there's a party. And but I don't know where the regulations are. What do you want me to do? Do you want us to call the police if they cross the line? That's the area where then the police will be down at every bar in every town all night long. I mean, and they come out of the apartment. So where's the regulation if somebody comes out of the apartment with a bottle of beer and they have a cigarette and they're standing on their sidewalk in front of their building with a beer? Is that a violation? Who's responsible for that?
You wouldn't let that person bring a beer into your
No,
bar.
we don't leave nobody bring beer into our,
So you
they
wouldn't
come
let them
in.
bring it in the fence area
No.
either.
No.
But I
Mr.
think,
President.
I think getting back to the issue, though, the issue is closing the alley here.
Yeah, I understand that. I will have a
it's-
fence up and I'll have I will have it.
It's closing the alley, and
Yep.
it's also controlling the people who are walking out of the licensed area. There currently is not any markings in front of the applicant's sidewalk that would indicate where people are allowed to be. There's no fence there, there's no barrier there. There is no control by the applicant of people taking drinks out of his premises. As recently as last Saturday, there was a wedding party there. There were probably a dozen people all over the sidewalk with drinks, including someone who walked out of his bar with a drink and went into the alley. There was an individual standing among the crowd wearing a blue shirt who looked a lot like Mr. Com, and there was nothing done
But-
to control those people or tell them, hey, you guys cannot be out here. This isn't licensed.
But we are 4 feet outside though. I mean,
We're
we
way
are.
more than 4 feet outside, Mr. Com.
The pictures that we've seen that were sent to us yesterday, I believe,
Yes.
and, were from last Saturday, Rick.
Yeah, I understand
And
that.
where
But you got a
people-
wedding party coming off a bus and you got them, they're bringing alcohol off the bus. Where's that? And I take the cans and stuff away from them and clean it up before they get in my building. If they're walking towards my thing, where's my?
Correct. But also their one picture, or the video, came out of your bar. And
So I got a
Pass that
question though.
into the alley,
Are we
so-
watching only my establishment?
There's only seems to be one establishment where it's primarily happening. And Mr. Com, you're the applicant
Yep.
tonight. Okay?
And-
If there was
Okay,
someone
I'll
else,
do for, I'm looking at Oktoberfest. I'm looking to put the gates up
And-
in the alley and in the back. I'll have security out and I'll have door carters. And that's what I can do.
But the bottom line, I know what you're saying, people are people. And
Yeah,
people
it
are
is.
gonna-
I mean, but I just ask a simple question, though, where do you, I can tell all of them to move in, they move in, and then they move back out because of the cigarette ordinance. If it's a 4 foot, that's a sort of a thing. If I have 30 people standing out there smoking, their thing is, okay, I'll walk around, I'll do that. And I think and I'll go back to the thing again where I think you're looking at one thing. If I have a wedding party there, that's a lot of people. And another thing, a lot of these, if you understand, a lot of these wedding parties that are in town aren't from New Ulm or whatever. They come to spend money in town. And I think, again, we should
Mr.
be,
Com,
I understand that.
if the standard was spending money and having people here, you could be selling to minors, you could be selling to drunks.
That's not what.
That's not the criteria.
No, it is not.
We've got the law, you've
I
got to follow
do, I do the
it.
best I can to keep
That's
them
what
in.
we're asking you to do.
Yes, and I do what I can. I do the best.
I think Mr. Com's got the message from us, so I'm gonna offer the resolution, waive the reading. And also that number 4th condition, that he offers security at the entrances to the building and the alley.
I guess I'd like to add that security be approved by staff or law enforcement as a recognized security, you know. Because I know Shells uses a security firm when they do theirs out there, and that's on the public right away, and I just would like to treat it as that. And
I don't know if we need to have our staff getting into approving other people's staff.
well,
I'm not gonna add that.
just,
If we have problems in the future, yeah, then maybe we go down that road.
okay.
Did we have a second?
Second.
We have a motion and a second to offer the resolution, waive the reading. Any more discussion? Seeing none, Finance Director, please call the roll.
Counselor Mack?
Yes.
Counselor Schultz?
Yes.
Counselor Christian?
Yes.
President Schmitz?
Yes, motion carries. Item number 5.2, New Ulm Chamber Oktoberfest event.
And this is an application that comes every year. I request, my recommended action is to approve this request with the same stipulation that they do have security at the exits to help keep the alcohol within the event.
Any discussion? I think we talked about it.
Yeah.
I remember right from as we talked about earlier, there was some concerns about the first weekend, but there was no real signs about people taking alcohol out of the premises. They added signs that dramatically slowed that down. They had people there, so I think they handled the complaints well. And I was down there, I didn't see concerns. I wouldn't know if I was there the first weekend, but I was there the second weekend, but, I don't see if anything, there's a lot of volunteers around that know the rules, and the new chamber administrator, he'll be figuring this all out, right? I'm gonna go ahead and offer the motion.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any more discussion?
Then, am I seeing it with here on security or not? I looked at their map. I mean, I want to treat it all the same. We're letting them use the public right away.
Yeah. I mean, I want to add the security there, but I don't know if Les added
Right.
that to his.
I'd like to
his
see that
motion.
added into that motion. Treat them all the same.
I'm okay with that, so yeah, let's add that as a
I'm okay
condition
with-
on my motion.
I'm okay with it.
We do have our new chamber exec, does you wanna you have any concerns about that? You wanna talk about that at all? You're okay with that?
Mr. President,
Yes.
point of order, shouldn't it be a resolution if you're authorizing use of the right of way?
I was wondering about that too, it's like, why was the other one a resolution and this one's a motion?
I would agree with the city engineer.
So I'll offer that as a resolution.
Second.
Thank you for clarifying that, Mr. Kaler.
We have a motion and a second to offer the resolution, waive the reading. Any more discussion? Seeing none, Finance Director, please call the roll.
Counselor Mack?
Yes.
Counselor Schultz?
Yes.
Counselor Christian?
Yes.
President Schmitz?
Yes, motion carries. Item number 5.3, Brown County Agricultural Society request for standby services, and that's for Saturday, October 19th, 2019.
I'll move it.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Seeing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no. Motion carries. Item 5.4, Park and Recreation donations.
Since my counselor to the right has got that sore throat, and I know he likes to do these, but I'll take it from him this time. I'm gonna go ahead and offer a resolution, waive the reading to accept the donations to the New Ulm Park and Rec Department as outlined. For the German Park Amphitheater, $100,000 cash from anonymous donor, $10,000 cash from Herbie Hedgehog, $4,600 from Stephen Sampson, $1,000 from Ruth McCrea, $500 cash from Lisa Hagan, $100 cash from Mavis Davis, $100 cash from Dwight and Mary Beth Nilsson, heating and air conditioning, and $50 from Jackie Forst, and $100 for the German Park paver stone and improvements from Ring Kids, Richard, Roger, Linda, Michael, and Linda Tongate. And that's a total of $116,450 donations, so thank you all very much.
Second.
Second.
We have a motion and a second to offer resolution, waived reading. Any more discussion? Seeing none, Finance Director, please call the roll.
Counselor Mack?
Yes.
Counselor Schultz?
Yes.
Counselor Christian?
Yes.
President Schmitz?
Yes, and it sounds like the mayor will be busy. Item
Kinda
number.
hard to send some of those, though.
Anonymous.
Well, I'm not sure who Anonymous is, and I don't have Herbie Hedgehog's address, so.
You know
we'll
where he
have to
lives,
work
though.
about
I
that.
think you know where to
Know where he
find him.
lives.
Well, I kind of know where he sometimes lives.
All right, item 5.5, FEMA flood mitigation grant application for lift station. Now, who we got that one on? Dave Barkert.
Dave Borkert, Nome Police Chief. President Schmitz, members of the council. Essentially what I'm doing is they had just announced these grant opportunities. And before I go any further, of course, even apply for them, technically I would need approval from the council. So this is very early in that stage. They had, literally when I had done the request for council action was the same day that we had, they had announced it. So that's where we're at. We're having, there's two of these grant applications. They both come from FEMA. They're, basically different pots of money. One is flood mitigation, and the other one is pre-disaster. And again, that's just coming from different areas. A little bit of background with like the pre-disaster. Whenever there's a presidential declaration for any type of event in Minnesota or within your state, it frees up some money that comes from FEMA that can be used for mitigation projects. Flood mitigation, again, that's different money, but follows the same type of concept. They know that there's flooding that's happening on a regular basis, and they're trying to provide an opportunity for local cities and local government to become more resilient in being able to basically prevent issues. Regarding this, I had talked with the street superintendent, public works superintendent Kurt Curry. He's his employees and his expertise, they're essential when we're fighting the floods, especially at 18th South. And what we're encountering is on one side, how I explained in the request for council action, when the floodgates are closing because we're having a flooding event with the Minnesota River, and we start having, everything is fine until we have basically a downpour, and then we're flooding from the other side. And, it can potentially create a lot of issues with the private, but, regarding these type of funds, I would be in the grant application really be focusing on the public, potential public infrastructure damage and stuff. So that's really where we're at. I know last year, or this spring, I should say, we almost lost a couple pumps. Am I correct when I say that?
Yes, at 18 South, we had, they're called 2 Sykes pumps. They pump 3,000 gallons a minute. We had them set behind the Shell's warehouse on 18th, and on 2 occasions, we came within 1 inch of losing both of them. And they're about a $60,000 pump. And that's all we have right now. We own one, wastewater owns one. If you notice, when we get to our budget, I've got another one to share cost with public utilities because we don't have enough. What Dave is proposing, what we're talking about, is a permanent solution. It's just like a wet well, a lift station, and a sewer system. It's got an electric pump. It's got floats. You turn it on, you walk away. There's no overtime. There's no checking the pumps. There's no, we know they'll do the job. They're engineered to do the job. They know what the flow is. And right now, it's best guess when it rains 3 inches in 2 hours. And that's all we have. So that's the story behind it.
And Kurt, could you maybe touch on like the potential issues that we could have with backup, like with the sanitary sewers? Kind of a no-brainer. Sewers we've talked about.
It could infiltrate the sanitary sewers if the water gets backed up far enough into Valley Street for one, the low spot on 12th. We have two spots, the Shells on 18th and C Street is the other one that have big drain fields. The Shells drains basically everything from Broadway, 20th South to 12th South, all goes through Shells. So if the groundwater gets high enough, it can infiltrate the storm sewers also, and the basements right there. We came within about 8 feet of that first house on 18th last year, or this spring actually. So.
Thank you.
So the grant is approximately $1 million, and this talks about there's a 25% matching component that either the state or the city. Can you talk a little bit about, would have to pick up that match. Can you talk a little bit about what that means?
Well, when I start, if this would be approved, as far as the grant application, that's the first thing they're gonna check with. It's like, do you have the authority, first of all, and they do this across the board, do you have the authority to act on this? Well, with council approval, I would. And, are you able to potentially come up with the 25%? Because there is a 25% match. Oftentimes, the state has funds available as well when they work through these grant applications. At this stage, I wouldn't be able to certainly guarantee or assure anything, but they certainly try to work with you. Sometimes they can come up with the entire 25%. Sometimes there's more of an in-kind type of matching component, but that's driven by the state, not FEMA. The state, this is actually a FEMA grant, Federal Emergency Management Association or agency. HSEM is the state component of basically FEMA. Usually and that's Homeland Security Emergency Management. So the state acts usually as the fiscal agent for the feds.
This is a horrific grant to fill out,
Yes,
I would guess.
it is.
Federal grants always are. I think we gotta at least try for it. We're not committing any city dollars tonight. We're just approving that they can apply for it. So I'm gonna offer the motion to approve submitting this.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any more discussion? Seeing none? All in favor, say aye.
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 Opposed, no. Motion carries. Thank you, Dave. Then the next one up here is, you just explained that one. Item 5.6, FEMA Pre-Disaster Mitigation Grant Application for Lift Station. Do we need any more?
Same thing.
Same thing.
Somebody want to make?
Same thing. I'll just go ahead and offer a motion to approve that as well.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any more discussion? Seeing none? All in favor, say aye.
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 Opposed, no. Motion carries. Item 5.7, Minnesota River State Trail. And let's see who got that one. Dave Schnoberg.
Okay, the Minnesota River State Trail is a legislatively authorized state trail, which is intended to extend from just north of Ortonville to the city of Le Sueur. It's about 175 miles. Trail is intended to be multi-purpose. The DNR is currently focusing their planning efforts on the area between New Ulm and Nicollet. And they've considered different locations, and At the present time, they believe that the area just south of the new alignment for US Highway 14 would be the best location. And so they are asking for a resolution of support from the city of New Ulm, as well as the cities of Nicollet and Cortland. I might note that Nicollet County, as well as the DNR and MnDOT have been meeting on this particular matter. So that is why we have this particular request made.
Thank you, Dave. Anybody have any questions?
No, I just know the trails are continuing to expand in every city and county, and they're all trying to connect to each other so that people can move from one city to the next. And I'm going to offer the motion that we continue to take a look at this, or the resolution, that we continue to look at this and move forward.
Second.
Second.
We got a motion and a second to offer the resolution, waive the reading. Any more discussion? Seeing none, Finance Director, please call the roll.
Counselor Mack?
Yes.
Counselor Schultz?
Yes.
Counselor Christian?
Yes.
President Schmitz?
Yes, motion carries. Item 5.8, set a public hearing for the 2018 Alley Street, or Utility Street and Alley Improvements, Group 1, and that's for October 15, 2019 at 4:30 p.m.
I'll move it.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any more discussion? Seeing none, all in favor say aye.
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 Opposed, no. Motion carries. Item 5.9, day after Thanksgiving holiday. Chris?
So this is something that I just wanted to bring to the council to see if we'd be able to get the Friday after Thanksgiving off. We sent an email out to 55 different cities, and 49 of those cities had the day after Thanksgiving off. All the cities that I've worked for previously have had that day off. The county has that day off. And so just being in line with having a quarter of the staff in City Hall that day, no one really calling City Hall, coming to City Hall, thinking we're probably not open because the county's not open, kind of fits in with giving everyone that day off, as well as Thanksgiving is a time to be with family. And if you're leaving Wednesday night to go have dinner with your family, and then you have to come to, leave at 3 or, early in the evening to come home because you have to work the next day, depending on road conditions and things like that, better just having everyone be safe with their family for the holidays and resuming work on Monday on a day when really no one's here anyway, and no one's calling us to do anything. I mean, it's a day when I came in this year, I was able to catch up on emails, phone calls for people that were still working that day, but I was kind of cleaning my office and just making sure things were functioning properly. But cost savings to the city, because then we just essentially be closed from Thursday to Monday, no heating, no cooling, energy down, and so overall I think just a good fit.
Chris, how many days does this conclude for like floaters or for?
So we currently have 9 paid holidays and then 2 floating holidays.
That would be 9 with it. This would be 10. Then.
This would be 10 holidays and 2 floating.
Mr. President, before I can vote on this, I think we don't have the total picture. We have a survey that said yes or no, do you work on the day after Thanksgiving? I agree. It's probably one of the most common day that people take vacation. And it's a skeleton crew running the city operations. I absolutely understand that. However, I want to make sure that what this scale doesn't tell us is how many actual full paid holidays do all these cities have. Do some have 9, 10, 11, 12, 13? Doesn't tell me that, and I don't think I can make a decision tonight until I have that data. Some counties have, or cities have floating holidays. We have 2. Some work half Christmas Eve, and so there's all these little mixtures. So I just think we got to be fair to our taxpayers as well as we are to our employees, and have that. If we're going to make that decision, I think we need that information. So I'm not ready to vote on that today without that, because my understanding is the average government paid holidays is 11. That's what we have. Now, if people don't work that day very much, then maybe we trade that for a floater, or maybe we do add that extra day. I don't know, but I guess I want to see what that survey is about from the other cities first.
I would agree with Counselor Schultz on that. I also would like to, the HR to look at the calendar year, and then we approve that calendar running year, and whether it's gonna be 9 floaters or, and come back with 3 personal holidays or how we're gonna do it.
So I'm not saying no at all. I want to make that real
Correct, but-
clear. I just want more information before I can feel I can make a fair judgment on this topic.
And I think we have a little time. So, I mean,
Yeah.
they
we
can
do.
come back and
He's coming.
Oh, she might have it here.
Oh, Sean has got some comment on that.
data.
Shauna Boomgarden, Human Resources Director. I did try to reach out to all the cities that, because what happened is I sent out the question on the listserv, yes or no.
Yeah.
I get a lot of responses with yes or no, but if I ask for more information, it's harder to get a response. I did receive some responses. I asked specifically for cities with a population between 7,000 and 20,000. For example, St. Joseph has 12 holidays, 1 floater. Waite Park has 11 holidays, 2 floaters. Minnestrista has 10 holidays. Big Lake has 10 holidays. Marshall has 10 and 1 floater. West St. Paul has 11 and 1 floater. Red Wing has 11 and 1 floater. I've emailed all of them. I didn't ever get a response, but I can continue to try
Can you
and
just bring
present
that back
it.
to us, and
Yeah.
whenever you have the data, just go ahead and get it scheduled. Is that, so can I just offer a motion to table this item? Is that appropriate? All right, I'm gonna offer that motion then. So thank you though for your information so far.
I'll second that.
We have a motion and a second to table it. Any more discussion? Seeing none? All in favor, say aye.
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 Opposed, no. Motion carries. Item number 5.10, Personnel Committee. Chris?
So this item is being brought to you after doing some work and looking after what Brandon Fitzsimmons from Flattery and Hood had presented on the role of the personnel committees. So some background for the council to close a meeting. You can do that for labor negotiation strategies, performance evaluation, preliminary consideration of allegations or charges against employees, and internal affairs data relating to allegations of law enforcement, personnel misconduct, or active law enforcement investigative data. And so looking at the personnel committee, my recommendation would to either go down to a legislative or a council liaison, a 1-member council liaison, or just bringing all matters dealing with personnel to the council as a whole, having all 5 members hear the same information at the same time. And that way you can make a decision. And like I said, there are ways to close a meeting for very specific reasons. But really all the personnel decisions that the city makes, whether it's changes or additions to the personnel policy manual, my performance review, benefit changes and additions, review proposals for executive searches, changes to organizational structures, and even appointment of department heads comes before the council anyway. For your approval. So at this point in time, I don't feel a personnel committee is actually needed, whether it's a liaison or just bringing the items to the council at large and have a closed session for specific items, I think would be the best way to go.
Thank you. I guess I'll cut in on this one because I'm actually on the Personnel Committee, and so is Lisa Fisher. She got a hold of me today to discuss this issue, and her recommendation was to table it until the next meeting when she can be here. Otherwise, our opinion is we'd like to see the Personnel Committee kept. For the simple reason is we could still meet, and it has to be an open meeting. We understand that, and we haven't done that in the past, but we haven't had that many. Since I've been on the city council in the last 11 years, when we first started out, we maybe had 1 personnel meeting a year, and it had to do with negotiations or that type of thing. I think it would be good if we could keep the Personnel Committee as a Personnel Committee. If we have any meetings, have them open to the public like we need to do. The other thing is I think it's important that we keep communications open. We have to know as a city council, a lot of times, I personally don't want to come and read it on the council agenda what's happening. I think we need to have the communications open so we understand. Just an example is with negotiations, we got 3 unions within the city, and to be told that today that we're going to be approving a 5% increase to all the employees, and we never heard about it until now, I don't think is the way it needs to be. So I really want to keep the communications open, and to be honest, I like what we did on the work sessions. We have them at the last meeting every month. I really think we need to have a little, with the we won't use the word personnel, but liaisons or whatever you want to call it, liaisons, just to get together every month, every other month. I don't care if we have anything to talk about, but at least sit down, maybe discuss a few things. But we have to have communications open. What we've had for problems with the city for years, and I've heard it and I've seen it, is a lack of communications. And if we're gonna start not having it, we're just gonna dig ourselves another hole. So my opinion is keep it as it is. If we need to have formal ones, have formal ones, but we need to meet and discuss. And we can decide. I mean, I looked at here, and I'll just pick one out, Marshall. Marshall, they have a personnel committee, and it lists exactly what their role is. And I think at a work session, we can come up and decide what the personnel committee's role is and what they would call an open meeting for. So that's my 2 cents worth. And I know it's Lisa's too.
Well, and I think your comment about Lisa would like to have some weigh in on this, I think we shouldn't table this one too, because I would like to hear her input. I think you're maybe on the right track, Charlie, is figuring those areas where we want more information. How do we best get that information from city staff? I mean, how can we have Chris get us that? And is that best through a personnel committee? Is that through him? So maybe if there's a committee, or not a committee, just 2 or 3 of you guys actually get together and talk about this and bring back some ideas to us the next meeting.
I think bring it to the next work session, you know.
Yeah, maybe we can brainstorm it in a work session.
Second meeting of October.
Remember what Mr. Flaherty, not Mr. Flaherty, but Flaherty and Hood representatives said? 2 or 3 getting together for a meeting is, unless it's been presented and an agenda is presented to the
Oh, I
public.
agree. No more
I mean,
than 2.
it's a lot of work to get those 3 people together or 2 people together. You just can't do that.
Yeah, you can't have more than 3 counselors, I understand that, without publicizing for their meeting, but I'm talking about is city staff along with either Charlie and or Lisa to
That's,
bring.
excuse me, Mr. That's also an open meeting. That's gotta
Yeah.
be, you've gotta go through the
You
same
have
thing.
to post your
You
agenda.
need the agenda, you need to post notice, the press has got the right to attend.
But you can have 2
Then-
people, like Les and I could walk into Chris's office tomorrow. We can sit down and talk about anything else we want, but we can't make a decision. We can give them a direction that we feel might be the right way to go. That is not illegal. We're not telling him what to do. We're just discussing it. He can make his own decision. He decides not to do what we want, we'll have a meeting.
It's two
That's what I'm
different,
voting.
2 different things that were mentioned there.
Right.
Well, let's just put it at a work session then.
Yeah, and realistically.
That way you have a posted agenda.
Yep, then we can
Right.
talk about it, we're legal and everything's fine. So maybe add it to the October work session.
Yeah, and realistically, you know, the reason why I would be opposed to, or not opposed to, just abolishing the personnel committee and just having the council as a whole, because if we have an open meeting law, we have to abide by that anyway. I rather talk to everyone and everyone has the same information
Right.
than having a small group then come to the larger group and presenting that information again. That way everyone gets to chime in and have their input on all these items. And then everyone has the same information at the same time.
And I'm okay with that. My discussion point might be is, I don't want to know every little minute detail either and having to make a decision on that. That's what we hire you to do.
Yep.
So that's where I want to figure out where that fine line is that we hire you to make those decisions. If they're larger policy issues and that kind of thing, then yeah, they need to come back to us. So let's put it on a work session where we can all talk about this and come to a resolution, I think. So I'm going to offer that as a motion to move this topic to the next work session in October.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any more discussion? Seeing none, all in favor say aye.
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 Opposed, no. Motion carries. Item 5.11, New Ulm Chamber of Commerce Retail Economic Development Coordinator.
So, the New Ulm Chamber of Commerce is looking for the city to fund a retail economic development coordinator in the amount of $45,000. This position will coordinate with the city and other city departments and other entities to promote development of retail in New Ulm. The job description, is attached as part of the packet, and I do have some more information to kind of throw out there, and then I'll have Michael go up and speak about the position. But the position itself actually isn't going to be exclusively to help chamber members. This will be a bigger position that'll help retail businesses and the development and recruitment for New Ulm just in general. A lot of the services and job functions that were listed in there will not be exclusive to chamber members. They will also help chamber members or New Ulm as a whole. And like the position before it, this position may do some chamber activities, but a bulk or most of their duties will retain to economic development and economic development only. So my recommendation is to fund this position, as it'll help, one, the city in general, because now we'll have essentially two individuals working and doing economic development in the city. One of the chamber primarily focusing on the retail businesses, and our economic development director looking at your attraction side from industry, helping businesses expand. And two is always better than one. And it's a staff member that, we on the city side, we're not paying benefits for, but it's providing a benefit to the city as a whole. And if you look at some of the job, the experience they're looking for an individual that does have experience in economic development, in recruiting businesses and things of that nature. So it'll help complement kind of what we're doing, and we can work with Michael to create a program, an economic development program that we're all on the same page, that it's not a duplication of efforts, but it's enhancing the efforts that we have in the city.
A comment I want to make, Chris, I'm not sold 100% on it. I'm saying now we're going to bump to 3 firms working for the city of New Ulm. Sorry, I can take my voice. I mean, we've got this retail strategy group we're going to get a report on the work session. To me, that's one person, one company we're employing. We have the new assistant, city manager, economic development director, and now the chamber wants to fund this. That's 3
Yeah.
in my eyes.
And so when you look at retail strategies, that very much is a recruitment firm only. So they're looking out and recruiting. They're not helping current businesses that are here, to expand. They're not looking at entrepreneurs that are in the city, looking to get into storefronts. So there's other components that the retail coordinator could help with, and with programs that we'll start putting into place, with Audra being here, it'll be a complementary suite of economic development on kind of all your fronts. You'll have someone really focusing on retail businesses, especially establishing, getting businesses into storefronts, working with property owners to help get their storefronts looking nice and presentable for potential people to look at, filling. And then on Audra's side, you'll be looking at, your businesses of industry, helping them expand, getting up at the airport industrial park. So I would recommend funding this position, but again, it's really up to the council to decide how they want to go, and maybe they look at a different option. And Michael maybe can speak to it about potentially partially
Put the
funding
spotlight on Michael.
and
Come on out.
kind of his plan for you guys to hear from him and not me. Yeah.
You want to introduce yourself and name and address for the record?
Yeah, sure. I'm Michael Loft. I'm at 106 Smith Street in Mapleton, Minnesota. Haven't moved yet. 3rd week. So thank you, Mr. Mayor, and the council members for bringing this on. I know that it was really late on the agenda. I had to swing pretty fast. I didn't want to miss it because I think it's a really good opportunity for New Ulm. Like Chris said, this is an enhancement. So when we look at retail strategies, that company is really good at recruiting large companies into spaces. They're not very good at entrepreneurs. They're not very good at helping local businesses do what they need to do. I said in my interview with, I think it was KNUJ, is that big box retail is not the same. So my history was with Walmart the last 15 years. And I'm telling you, the board meetings that they're having and the discussions that they're having as a company is much different than it was 10 years ago. So I think Retail Strategies is great, and I think they're going to do some really good data analysis for the city on the services that we need. But I think on top of that, we need someone on the ground, boots on the ground, that can truly structure some leeway for the entrepreneurs that are coming into the city.
And you're asking for 10,000 more than the previous year. So I'd like you to talk about that. And then also, our city manager said that a bulk of the work is doing this, and then some would be chamber stuff. Can you tell us, can you break that down a little more?
Yeah, I think the position, you know, previously I, you know, brief history, I saw there was like 3 different requirements for the job at first. It was really confusing. Maybe the focus wasn't there that we needed. This is a non-members thing. This is an addition to the chamber that can bring new retail into the position. The reason that we asked for additional 10,000 is obviously we're going for someone that's pretty highly qualified on economic development. So it's going to be a different personnel buy-in than we currently had.
Well,
And
Mr.
percentage-wise, as far as, what would you say the
So
work at the chamber versus?
the board is willing to go up to 55 at this point.
Okay, the question is percentage of time is the person going to be
Yeah,
working?
I think we could do a 90-10 split. It's, this is not an extra additional chamber.
That's what I'm trying to get at.
Staff member at all. This is not, I'm not looking to pad my staff so I can do less work. This is an individual that can be out in the community, that can go and recruit entrepreneurs, that can go to other cities and say, hey, have you ever thought of a second location? Your business is doing great here.
Well, I know one of the things that was really good about the person in the previous position is setting up periodic meetings with any entrepreneur who wanted to start a business. So they all come into a room and they get information on what are the rules with taxes and what do you need to set up to start up your business, and those are just a lot of those really basic questions that who's going to answer that if we don't have somebody doing some of this work. And that's why I've supported this position in the past, as we have businesses downtown boarded up, and we have a large Target building that's still sitting empty. We have other buildings sitting empty, and I think we all need to work hard at trying whatever we can to keep our town growing, keep our town open for business. And I do support this because I think not only do we need to retain the businesses that we have that are struggling, but also keep new businesses and encourage them, work with them, and get them open. Sometimes it's just a matter of holding their hand and getting them through the hoops so they know what to do and what opportunities there are based on what buildings we have available, based on what incentives we have. And I know we talked to Retail Strategies about coming back to us if they thought there was any incentives that were missing. And I'm guessing there probably is. We don't know yet. We'll hear about that later. So for those reasons, I'm going to support this position, or this request.
Mr. President, councilors, thank you. I think when the initial decision was made some time ago to make a contribution to the chamber for this position, I think I expressed some concerns about, excuse me, I must be addicted, of spending city public funds for an employee who's working for a private agency. This is now going up to $45,000. I'm not sure if the total salary, am I correct, was $55,000? So we'll be financing the vast majority of it. I don't know that it's even legal to be doing that, to be paying an employee who's working for a different agency. I mean, if the city thinks it's that essential and that it's going to be getting results, and I understand there would be benefits and the cost to the city is a lot more than just the wage, but perhaps that's an area you want to go. I also, and this is your concern, not mine, I don't know if there's ever been any reports about what's actually been accomplished in the past.
Yeah, we got monthly reports.
And listing all the businesses that have been brought in?
No, I talk about what progress or what things that they're working on. We got that every month when that person was in that place.
Okay, and I'm just, maybe I'm not remembering them, but I just don't recall that a lot was accomplished, Councilor. But anyway, that's not my issue. I'm just, again, my concern is the amount that's being requested I think there was much more of a balance in the past. I think it was quite clear that this person was definitely going to be committing to providing services to the city as opposed to just being a chamber employee. So perhaps this needs to be worked through a little more closely.
Yes, I'd like to chime in a little bit and just state, you know, we hired an assistant city manager in charge of economic development. We hired a retail strategies now as a consultant. We haven't even had a year and a half with our assistant city manager in charge of economic development, and now we've got another new hiree. I'd like to see how this goes and see some data and some monthly reports before I hire another position here moving forward, you know. And I'd like to hear from the chamber members out there, what do they want within their community? And I'd like to see the chamber board and challenge them. If they feel it's so good, then find a way to fund it, you know? And then if it's gonna come to the city, then maybe bring it to the EDA, if the EDA feels it's necessary to come out of the EDA budget to fund this position. That's just my,
You know, if my voice goes dead, I apologize, but in the past, I used to, myself and the planning commission, or the planning director, used to work with this individual. And correct me if I'm wrong, the planning director, I believe 80 to 85% of those people came to our office. That's where they were guided to, from that position. And I'll stand correct on that. They were sent to our office, the city.
My comment is when we hired retail strategies, I thought the money we spent there was gonna kind of replace what we were doing, so I don't know. I guess I'm not all excited about this.
I mean, you're correct. We haven't even given a chance what we just put into place. Let's hire more.
we haven't even taken, you know, it was a year and a half ago we hired Chris. Now we've got Audra, you know, and let's see some data that we're banging on doors and seeing what the community wants.
Well, to be clear, though, Audra's
See the
position
report.
is supposed to be looking more at industrial, not general retail downtown.
But it's economic development.
It is economic development, but
But-
the emphasis is to fill our industrial park. That's what that's when we hired Chris. That was the focus. It was not downtown retail. We're not
No,
adding a
but
new
if
position.
you aren't gonna tell me that if somebody calls City Hall and says, I need to talk to someone from economic development, we're gonna say, speak with Audra. Not,
Unless we had a specialist working at the chamber that was doing all this. Now, if it's
but-
illegal or we're doing something, then that's a whole different topic there,
but why don't we see if this works? And let's see some data that, you know, maybe she's overworked. I don't know that. You know, do we see that, you know, she's met with 10 people in a month, or is it 50? You know, is she have more businesses saying I need more retail calls, or it's industrial? You know, and I think we may have to look at, you know, we have our downtown, and I see we have a lot of empty storefronts, you know, and it might come down, you know, we need to revisit with some of these property owners as our economic development for our EDA and say, hey, we're working on something, you know, we might help with refacading, different things of those opportunities, but I think that's a separate entity, the EDA.
and we did challenge EDA at our last meeting to come
Correct.
up with some new
So-
goals and bring us some stuff, sure.
So at this point in time, I'd like to see what's working, and I'm not in favor of it.
And I want to keep it clear here, we're not adding a new position. This position's already here
With more money.
With
with 10,000
with more money.
Yep. So we don't have to approve
And it was a
45,000 either.
2-year temporary position that we've been funding for over a decade. So that's my 2 cents on it.
Any more comments? I guess I have a tendency to agree with Larry. I think we need to give it a chance, what we've got, and like I say, retail strategies, I thought was supposed to kind of fill in and be helping us too, and we haven't even got a report yet, so even though we know
Getting
it's
it
coming. but-
tonight,
Yeah,
apparently.
but after this.
After
So it's
this,
kind of hard to make a decision
I know,
if
I
you get
agree.
this after this and it's been 6 months.
So should we, God, I hate to say the word table again, but should we table this until we have more information?
I would say.
Oh, since I'm in the tabling mood, I'll table this one too. So we have more, and then maybe we have to look at EDA as well, because that's certainly, they could split the cost with us, or maybe they do want to fund it. That's a whole nother group, whole nother discussion.
We have a motion to table. Do we have a second?
Second.
We got a motion and a second to table it. Any more discussion? Seeing none, all in favor say aye.
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 Opposed, no?
No.
Finance Director, please call the roll.
Counselor Mack,
No.
Counselor Schultz,
Yes.
Counselor Christian.
Yes.
President Schmitz.
No. Now what?
It doesn't move.
Doesn't move, right?
So
So we just leave
either
it.
have to offer a new motion or
Just dies.
something else.
Dies. Okay. Item 5.12, preliminary 2020 budget. Nicole?
Okay. Let's go in here. So up to this point, we've had a couple of work sessions and worked through some things. So the result of this, the results here in my presentation tonight are all based on those discussions up to this point. I will point out right away that what this presentation is based on is a 5.18% increase in the levy for 2020. So with that said, I will go through what I have here, and then we'll open it up to discussion on which items may or may not remain in the budget or what you would like to see changed. So I'll just highlight a couple of things from the budget that got us to this point. Starting with the LGA, or the local government aid, that did increase for us by $122,000 going into this year, so that was in our favor. Based on historical experience, our expenses have increased $238,000 over last year. Sorry, or about 1%. It would have been more, but we had a large decrease in our health insurance that saved us about $170,000. And there were a couple of other smaller savings included. So even with some of the larger projects in the budget, including the Herman Hillside and the amphitheater, the pedestrian ramps, and we'll get to some of those individual items later, it was only a $238,000 increase in the expenses. Looking at the levy historically a little bit, so like I said, this is a 5.18% increase. The debt service levy, the portion actually decreased by 4% this year. So with some of our early retirements and savings with that levy decreased a little bit. And you can see over 2018, the 2019 budget increased by 6.5%. And before that, the year before that was 1.68%. So there's a few other years there that you can look at too if you are so inclined. Some of the highlights from the budget, like I stated before, the health insurance is a huge decrease for us. It's a 12 to 13% decrease, which is about $165,000 to $170,000. It is our second year of decreases in health insurance. Last year was a 5%. So we're having some really good experience that way right now. We are including in this budget a dental contribution from the employer of 50% of the premiums. That would be a new addition. We currently have dental, but it's fully employee paid at this point. It includes a wage increase of 3%. It also includes a para increase contribution, which is state mandated, of just under 1% for the police and fire employees. There is a 3 to 7% increase predicted for our insurances other than health insurance, and that's just based on the league's predictions for the year. It also includes a contribution to the building sinking fund of $475,000 and a contribution to the fire equipment fund of $295,000. And then looking at some of the things that I tried to do in the budget to save us a little bit in the levy, I only picked out 2 things to use fund balance for at this point, to be conservative that way. That includes using fund balance to fund half of a Sykes pump that the street department will share with the PUC. We had that in at $30,000 before, but after talking to wastewater, they think $50,000 is a better total cost for that pump. And then the pedestrian ramps, they want $100,000 from the city to help with that plan for the year. I only have half of that coming out of the fund balance, and the other half is in the levy. Now, these are some of the items that would stand out in the budget. They're not normal items that are included in the tax levy at this point. And you can see the levy impact of each of those there, so if you would consider taking any out, or you would get an idea of what the amounts and how they would affect the levy. One includes the pedestrian ramps that I mentioned before, half of that cost. The city building renovation contribution, the fire equipment contribution, and those are higher than last year's. Also includes the dental premium, the employer contribution, which is about just under $20,000. The zoning plan update, which would complete the zoning plan, was my understanding, that would be about $20,000. The city's contribution towards a bus route, which would be about $15,000. Christmas decorations of $50,000. The fire department changing to a paid-on-call system increases their budget by about $40,000. And then it's got the Herman Hillside in there. The total of that project right now is estimated at $470,000. Only $70,000 of that is in the levy right now. The other funding sources would include their fund balance, the renew dollars, and the EDA is contributing to that as well. And then the last item there is the contribution to the battery building. This would help establish a fund for replacement of that building. We're thinking over the next 3 to 4 years making contributions so that building could be built later. And then just looking at the use of the capital improvement funds that we've got in there, $17,000 out of the 290 fund would help, and this comes out of the building renovation fund, would help with the carpet replacement at the main fire station, and then $115,000 to help with that ADA compliance project at Riverside Park. The other two items listed there also use funds from 290, but it's a different fund within 290. It's not those two pots of money that we normally concentrate on. So it would be using the $250,000 that's already in there for the amphitheater. That's prior donations and prior city contributions that have been designated already in the past for that use. And then capital improvement funds, which have actually been sitting there since 2007. And those are there and were put there and intended to be used to reduce the bonding needed for the street projects each year. And this year we actually need those funds to keep the bonding level within the assessment, the required assessment levels. So that rather than putting that in the tax levy, we could use those funds that had been sitting there since 2007. And then, so this slide just talks about the impact on the levy and kind of how it impacts the tax rate. This is based on an estimated number of about a 2.2% increase in the net tax capacity. So that puts the current budget at a 5.18% increase in the levy, and that raises the tax rate to actually, instead of 81.1, I had a calculation error in there. It should be 81.9% would be the new tax rate based on the current levy amount. That is the information that I have for you at this point.
Thank you, Nicole. Anybody have any concerns, questions?
I got a couple of questions. If I can start out, the amphitheater funds, 250,000 on page 87. How much is that including or excluding the amount of donations that we talked about a little bit tonight? I mean, is that?
No, that does include, well, no, that's the money that's actually there. So that doesn't include pledges, and it doesn't include anything we've received.
So is that a fuzzy number? More donations come in like we're expecting?
More donations have come in since then.
Right.
I couldn't tell you what that
So that
total
number is not totally solid yet?
No.
That's less than that?
It's not
We don't
solid,
know
but-
how much.
But so really, once you get down to it within the budget, there's no money in the levy right now for the amphitheater project. The numbers are in there.
Oh, okay.
Estimated donations and everything are all within the budget somewhere to help cover that entire cost. So there's no levy impact due to the amphitheater
Okay.
project.
So how much shortfall are we potentially at that amphitheater? If you took the donations and what we've got budgeted?
About 268.
216?
268.
268
okay.
from a million.
My other concern is we don't have the comprehensive plan in here. It's going to be 13 years old next year. It was originally established in '96. We did an update in 2007 before any of us were on the council. And now we were going to do it 3 years ago. And there was Brian asked us to wait a little bit, so we did. And then there was a change in administration, and then more change in administration, so we put it off again. I really don't want to put that off anymore. I mean, that is, we heard tonight how people are already referring to the comprehensive plan, and it's going to be 13 years old. There's areas that don't even make sense anymore because we don't follow it, or we don't. That's not an area of concern as it was. It was really well written, and I've talked about that before. I think the people in 07 did a really nice job. Does it need to be written from scratch? My opinion, no. So I don't think it's an $80,000 ticket item that some cities pay to redo an entire comprehensive plan. But I think there should be some funds, and I would like to see it. And if we put it towards the end of the calendar year, maybe we could budget half the amount for 2020 and maybe the other half in 2021. That's kind of a compromise. At least let's get going on it. Let's project that we'll have it done in 2021, but start in 2020. I could certainly compromise to that, but I really don't want to keep kicking it down the road when it's an important document for our city. And when you hear people saying how old it is, people kind of go, oh, really, it's that old? So I would like to have some discussion on that item.
Dave?
Dave Schnobert, Community Development
Yes.
Director. The budget currently has $20,000 to use for an update of our zoning ordinance. That's a project that we've been working on for basically probably 8 to 10 years now. I'd like you to remember that over that 8 to 10 year time period, we didn't have an assistant city manager, and we also didn't have a planner. And so a lot of the duties and responsibilities of those positions were borne by myself and others in our area. So that's why our progress has been, unfortunately, very slow. But now that we're up to full staff, we are making progress in that area. And with the $20,000 allocation, I think we're going to be able to complete the process. So our focus, in my opinion, should really be on getting the zoning ordinance updated. As far as the comprehensive plan is concerned, I guess I don't see problems with the comprehensive plan that perhaps others do. The plan was adopted in 2007, and while it was referred to as an update, it really was a comprehensive analysis of the plan that was approved in 1997. You have to remember that the first 3 years after its adoption was basically the housing recession. We had little or no development taking place within the community. So I think by and large, the plan is still in pretty good condition. I think the goals and policies of the plan are still accurately reflect what is desired on the part of citizens of this community. The land use plan, the transportation plan, the park and recreation plan I don't know that, substantial changes are necessary. So from the standpoint of priorities, I would first do the zoning ordinance update before I would consider doing the comprehensive plan.
And I'll just, we don't always agree on everything, and this is one thing I disagree on. I don't think our plan is reflective. We certainly have changed dramatically in the last few years, our housing, from what it described in that comprehensive plan to what we have now. It's totally different from what, having market rate housing and all the requests that were in there. We have Park and Rec is totally different than what it was 12 years ago, in addition of things, amenities that we have in our community. It's not reflective of what we currently do now, and it's not reflective of where we want to go. And what do we wait, 15 years? No, I think we need to put our feet in the ground and get this done. This is a document that helps us run the city, and it's going to be 13 years old. You can't keep looking at a document that's that old.
But a comprehensive plan is a physical development plan of the community.
Correct.
A lot of the things that you're referring to are really outside of that particular area.
But those plans always come back to what's in the comprehensive plan. What does the comprehensive plan say about our future housing? or where development should occur. It's always we're always going back to the plan.
Well, if anybody would like to stop up in my office and tell me, ask me those questions, I can give you those answers.
Sure,
I mean,
you can, but they
they're
should
in
be
that
in the plan.
document. Oh, I think they are in the plan, though.
Yeah, I disagree. I don't think they are. And I think we're agreeing on one thing, though. You're saying that you can get that zoning plan done, and if you get it done in the next 6 months, and I'm sure you can if you're a full staff, then it follows right with what I'm talking about, is let's work on the comprehensive plan the second half of next year.
Yeah, that certainly
We're
would.
fine. We're agreeing, I
Would
think.
be possible.
Yes, I agree so. And we put half of the cost in now, half into the 2021 budget, and we have it done, so.
Except that we haven't cost out what it would take to do a comprehensive plan update.
We had a guesstimate cost with our previous administrator at 40,000 for an update, not a brand new one.
Okay, I'm not aware of where that cost came
I-
from. I wasn't involved in coming up with that number, so I don't know.
It was a guesstimate. I don't think it was an actual written estimate, but I think that might have been Brian's estimate, but for an update versus. And when you're full staffed, you can have sometimes internal staff can take this project on as well, or parts of it. So, versus getting consultants to come in and do it, so.
Les, have you brought that up to the EDA to consider updating the comprehensive plan and what their thoughts are for how they're looking at the city for the future?
We haven't.
Any reason we wouldn't ask them or bring it up?
They might say that's your business, not ours. I don't know.
Realistically, so what would happen is in progression, you would finish the zoning ordinance, so that's ready, because that's your basis
Yeah.
for your comprehensive plan. Then you get your comprehensive plan, and then from your comprehensive plan, you would then start peeling off other things, your economic development strategic plan, because it's all based on stuff from there. So that's when the EDA would come in with their economic development strategy
Sure.
based on what the comprehensive plan. So you go, your zoning is really what needs to be done first. So that needs to be finished before we move forward with doing a comprehensive plan. And then from there, we can look at other strategies based from there. But, Les and Dave, you're both correct at the same time.
Yeah, I think
We
we're
need to
on
get it
the-
done.
yeah.
And we're at staff, so we'll get it done.
Well, I just would like to keep it then as an action item and put it on for work sessions for future discussion, and then we'll have updates on the zoning, and then we can bring it
But
back.
if we
for
don't add
comp
it
plan
tonight, it's
for
not gonna be part of the levy.
Yeah,
So can we put 20,000 in there?
I don't think
I
we
don't,
need to.
how does that affect
I
our
don't think we
overall
need to at
number?
this time.
What would it do to our number?
20,000 would be about probably
One-
another 0.3%.
0.3?
0.26.
We're at-
Yeah, there you go. I would think if you would get to the point in the year where you could do that 20,000 could easily come out of fund balance at that point.
True.
I mean, and we budget conservatively enough where if you got to the point you could spend 20,000, it's probably sitting there.
That's a very good point. I'm glad you brought that up. That
Okay.
is another way to go. And I can live with that. As long as, we'd have to have, again, some more consensus, because I'm kind of the only one saying this, so I don't know how everybody else feels. And we're missing a counselor, too.
No, I agree with you. I think we need keep moving ahead, and like Dave made the comment, get one done and then go from
Last time it
there.
was 11 years before they updated. We're already gonna be at 13.
Right. I know we've been talking a long time.
We've been talking at least 3-4 years.
I think we gotta get our zoning done, and we heard it earlier tonight, we're 50 years behind, in some cases.
Oh, you.
So,
Let's not start that.
I don't know about 50, but.
okay.
Right. Any
All
more
right, I will
discussion?
withdraw my request to have that added, as long as we have more discussions about potentially out of the general fund, which I don't like doing, but it's $20,000, it's not $1 million.
Any more for Nicole?
What are we gonna be doing with the Christmas decorations there for 50,000?
So the Christmas decorations, still have not got back a quote yet from the manufacturer that would put them together. At 50,000 is really on the high end, but you guys here can tell me 30,000 is the max we want to spend, or 20,000 is the max we want to spend, and I'll fit it within what that is. But the initial kind of plan is to take all the trees that are on the corners, wrap those with Christmas lights bottom to top, and then have Christmas wreaths on the globes, kind of like zigzagging down the streets. Those will have bows and LED lights on them, and then to still have a sense of that live garland tradition. The banner poles that have no lights on them, we'll be putting live garland wreaths on those, so you won't be able to see them because there won't be lights, but during the day you'll be able to see them and smell them. And then potentially behind, on the corners behind the bollards, there'll be the stacks of Christmas ornaments, so the little pyramid of Christmas ornaments tucked up against the bollards over there, to liven up each of the corners, so you can see that there are festivities and things going down. So probably shouldn't be 50,000, especially if we're looking at purchasing them in the first part of the year. You do get a significant discount for purchasing them at that point. So I mean, if you wanted to cut that right now to 25,000 or 30,000, I think that'll get us where we need to go. I just threw 50,000 in as a placeholder.
How about we leave it in there then, and then see where you come back in first quarter with numbers of what purchasing would be then for 2020.
Yeah.
That way we know we're covered.
I think we need to leave it in.
And I'll probably even have some numbers by the
It
time
could
you're
be
ready
reduced
to.
before
Sure.
we set the
Right.
final levy.
Okay.
Right.
The final
I'm
levy,
just
so.
throwing it out there.
Riverside Park Building ADA compliance project, how good of estimate is that 115? It seemed a little high, but I guess it's just me, but.
I don't know. Tom, I guess in my own opinion, I don't think it's probably too high for what we're planning on doing. We've seen the plans on it.
Okay, I have not seen them, that's why I'm.
Tom?
Tom Schmitz, Park and Recreation Department. I would say that estimate is not too high.
Okay.
You know, the price of construction is rising daily. And this is
It's a ramp and a deck around
the
that
north
building.
side and the rear, the river side of the
It's
building.
an
I just-
observation deck. It's not small.
It just kind of popped up to me like, I want to ask that question, so, thank you.
Thank you.
Anybody else have anything else?
Counselors, I would like to add, so with the city building renovation and the fire equipment fund, going through those numbers and having worked with Abdo on the long-term plan and kind of seeing their draft and what their opinion as well, I think that's high. I don't know that we need to put that much into those funds. My feeling is if you're comfortable with the levy increase being where it's at, I would like to take 100 from each of those and put it back into a capital improvement fund. So like this year, we have that 260,000 to use to reduce the bonding issue. We start to rebuild that fund so that in a future year, if we need to do the same thing, we have those funds available rather than throwing all of that in to the levy in that year that we need it.
When they give you those reports, though, do they take into consideration the astronomical construction costs are rising at 10 to 15% a year? They do?
Yep, they have estimates in there for those increases for inflation.
Nicole, if we were try to get that 5.18 down to like 4.95 or something, what would that take?
So 77,000 is 1%.
Yeah, I don't want to, so, okay.
So you're talking another 0.3%?
About 30 or 40,000, so if we pulled that off of that amount, could we get that down under 5?
If you pulled it off of the building contribution or
Yeah.
the fire equipment, yeah.
I would like to see us get under 5.
Mr. President, I think what the finance director was recommending that you move it to another location, not
Correct.
reduce,
Reduce it.
not reduce it.
But I know what you're saying is, actually, I've heard several county budgets within our area, and most of them are in that
Under 5,
4.9,
4.9,
under 5.
yeah. It's always been my goal to try and keep it under 5, if not even, obviously lower than that, but,
I always have a problem not putting the money into the revolving funds and building fund and all that. I know in the past we have always, if there's someplace we wanna grab our money, that's where we grab it, and those are the items that do come and bite us afterwards. So, I don't know.
So just as a reminder for the fire equipment fund, even reducing that to 195,000 this year, and then if we go back to 295 next year, in 2040, so even going through all the purchases we need over the next 20 years, when you get to 2041 and you buy that next ladder truck, we still have $2.5 million in there after we buy the truck.
Right, but next year we're gonna pull another 100,000. We've done it every year.
Yep.
Every
This year
year
we
we
decided to
reduce.
bump it back where it's supposed to be.
Right,
And in 20 years, what's a truck gonna cost then?
I know.
Yeah,
That's
true
built into
too.
here, trust me, there's a huge
Okay.
inflation amount
Okay.
built into here.
But if you look in the paper, about 50 years ago, for that ladder truck, they paid $9,000, and what we.
Yeah,
This
yeah,
is
I read that.
estimating 2.5
I,
million.
I just don't wanna start taking money away.
Mr. President, in the finance director's comments, though, she's thinking about the inflation and the construction projects out there as well.
Yeah.
We can't keep bonding for $4 and $5 million every year and get that. We got to get 20% back in our special assessments, and that's becoming more difficult all the time. We don't have those initial subdivisions that can take 90% of the special assessments. We're working on reconstructs and barely getting to 20%. So I think, in her defense, that's what she's thinking about, moving something over to there. Obviously, the fire equipment and those other funds are important, but you really have to start thinking about those capital improvement projects out there that are never gonna go away.
Yeah, they're always there.
But the bottom line is somewhere we're gonna have to put it in the levy. Whether you put it in for that or you put it in for the fire truck. So-
Exactly, but Mr. President, if you start to put a little in now, that's less you're paying back next year, and it takes you 10 years to get that,
I know.
you know. These other funds you just keep putting into.
Yeah.
You're gonna pay less in your debt reduction as you go along, as you're able to increase
And
the
if I
levy
didn't
funds.
think those funds weren't well-funded and were in any danger of running out at some point, that would not be my recommendation. But because once you put them in there, that's what they're restricted for. If we can spread what we're restricting money for, we have more pots to pull from more different projects in the future.
Right, no, I agree. But I'm just saying, I can go along with it one more time, but I don't wanna see us cut them next year again. I will not support it. I think, you know.
That still doesn't get us under 5.
No, that
No,
just moves the money.
it just flips the money.
Yeah, I was just
money.
saying, if you're comfortable with that 5.18, then can we just move it somewhere
If we were to
else?
ask you, Nicole, to get this under 5, what would you recommend?
Probably using more fund balance for something, whether it's for the Herman Hillside or the bus route or the zoning, using some fund balance for some of those smaller
Are we still at
projects.
55%?
We are at the end of 2019, we should be just over 56%.
For the
thought the-
hillside, how much fund balance do we actually need? We don't have exact numbers, do we?
Well,
We the other day approved $100,000 from EDA.
Yep.
So what does that,
they're using 200,000 from the Park and Rec fund balance right
Right.
now, and then 100,000 from Renew. So of that $470,000 estimate, that leaves 70,000 that I've got in the levy right now. If the city would fund that full 70,000 out of fund balance, that doesn't
I
even
think
drop
we-
us 1%. and
right,
it-
I think we have enough in our fund balance that we could actually do it without hurting our bonding rate or anything.
I'd
So I
say
guess that would be my recommendation.
That would be my recommendation
That would bring
also.
us right under 4,
Right.
or under 5, I mean.
Just
that
under
would-
5,
If we took the full 70,000, it would bring us down, probably to
right around 5,
Or,
about 5.5,
as you
or
said.
4.5.
Oh,
sorry.
yeah, okay.
I guess I like that.
I'm all right with that.
I like that
I
number.
can live with that.
Let's shoot for that.
Okay.
Is there anything else we're missing?
So and then we're still gonna flip-flop to help Steve out.
Well, Mr. President, you're not helping me, you're helping the taxpayer. If you don't have to pay back $5 million a year, it's all comes around.
Yeah.
You either gotta borrow it and pay for
I
it
know.
later, or pay for it now.
All right.
I thought the bus route plan was for that to start operation in '21.
But we have to do the
planning
study.
money
Do
and
the study.
We have to do the study
We have to do
first.
the study
study
first.
first.
We have to do the
Okay.
study first
All
to
right.
see if
Yep.
they're gonna
Just
come
wanna
back.
double check.
So anything else anybody have? I think we reached a number that we could live with, and from what
So
I'm
we
hearing.
don't have an exact number unless you can pull it up, Nicole, right? So
She's-
you do that afterwards is what we've done in the past?
I can give you an
But we're
estimate.
assuming
but
it's
yeah.
gonna be around 4.5,
think-
most of it.
What?
Fine
Only
with it, but I-
70,000.
You don't even have bids yet.
right.
No,
Right.
it's just an estimate.
All right. So, what do we need
Any more changes?
So I'll take a shot at this. I'll offer the resolution, waive the reading, accepting the preliminary budget, as stated by Nicole. How about that? Is that pretty good?
How about not to exceed that dollar amount, and then I can change it and lower
Yeah,
it?
not to exceed
No, just a dollar amount.
Not to exceed the 8,091,091 that's in there.
Oh, okay. But would that change, that keeps the percentage at over 5, though?
Yeah, but if you say not to exceed, I can lower that into with the resolution when I put it out there. I won't put it in at the 8, but if you give me that room to get the right number, I don't know what that total levy
Right,
amount
till you
is.
punch the numbers.
Yeah.
But you know it's gonna be under 5.
Yeah, I know the increase will
Okay.
be under 5, yes.
So I can offer the motion not to exceed 5%.
Okay.
Then you're covered there, right?
Mhm.
But more than likely, it's gonna be around the 4.2. All right. I'll
But
offer
you need to
that.
say 5% of the 8 million.
Right.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
So I'll offer that resolution.
Second.
Second.
We have a motion and a second off the resolution, waive the reading as stated. Any more discussion?
Mr.
Careful with
President,
that money.
Mr. President,
Yes.
were you moving that 100,000 as Nicole suggested from
yes.
each? Just so we're
I'll
clear.
put that in my resolution as well.
Which that doesn't really, because this is just the levy
Doesn't
amount
affect
in
the
total,
levy,
so it, yeah.
Right.
But
Right.
it
Just
gives
a-
you more freedom with that money, I think.
Okay. No more discussion? Finance officer, please call the roll.
Counselor Mack?
Yes.
Counselor Schultz?
Yes.
Counselor Christian?
Yes.
President Schmitz?
Yes, motion carries. With no more business, meeting adjourned.